Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Terra's Hope, watching the stars through the large front window. His crew had been traveling through space for 3 weeks now, checking old star systems and looking for anything strange or dangerous. It was quiet work, but someone had to do it. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had been captain of this ship for 5 years, and he knew his crew well. Lisa Grant sat at the weapons station, her fingers dancing over the controls as she watched for threats. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her completely. Ben Clark worked at the engineering station, making sure the ship ran smoothly. He was older than the others, with gray hair and hands that always seemed to be fixing something. Dr. Amy Carter sat at the science station, studying readings from nearby planets and stars. She loved learning about new things, and her excitement made everyone else feel better about their long trips through empty space. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the occasional beep from the computers. Jake liked these peaceful moments. Space was big and lonely, but his crew made it feel like home. Suddenly, Lisa's station started making loud warning sounds. She looked at her screen with confusion on her face. "Captain, I'm getting something." "Strange," she said, her voice tight with worry. "Multiple distress signals coming from the Kepler 442 system." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the flashing lights on her screen. "How many signals?" "At least 20, sir. Maybe more. They're all broadcasting on different frequencies, but they're definitely asking for help." Dr. Carter turned in her chair, her eyes wide. "That system is supposed to be empty. Our records show no known colonies or ships in that area." Ben looked up from his engineering station. "Could be pirates using fake distress calls to trap ships. We've seen that before." Jake thought about this. Pirates were always a danger in this part of space, but something felt different about these signals. They had a desperate quality that was hard to fake. "Lisa, can you understand what they're saying?" She worked on her computer for a few minutes, trying to translate the signals. "It's not any language in our database, Captain, but the universal translator is picking up some words. They keep saying help and dying and something that might mean children." Jake felt his stomach tighten. If these were real distress calls, people were in serious trouble. If they were fake, his ship and crew were about to walk into a trap. "Ben, how long would it take us to reach that system?" "About 6 hours at full speed, Captain." Jake looked around at his crew. They all watched him, waiting for his decision. This was why he was the captain. When things got dangerous or confusing, everyone looked to him for answers. "Set course for Kepler 442, he said finally. "But keep our weapons ready and our shields up. If this is a trap, we need to be prepared." The next 6 hours felt like 6 days. The crew took turns sleeping and eating, but no one could really relax. The distress signals kept coming, getting stronger as they got closer to the system. Dr. Carter worked hard to understand the language, and slowly she started to make sense of some words. "Captain," she said as they approached the system, "I think I know what's happening. These signals are coming from a species that calls themselves Zephyrians. They're talking about their sun getting bigger and burning their planet." Jake looked at the main screen as their ship entered the Kepler 442 system. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The system's star was huge, much bigger than it should be. It was bright red and orange, and it filled much more space than a normal star. Around it, several planets were already burning. One planet, further out from the star, still looked blue and green, but Jake could see that it was too close to the expanding sun. "My God," whispered Lisa. "Their star is dying." Ben checked his instruments. "Not dying, expanding. It's becoming a red giant star. That planet has maybe a few days before it gets too hot for anything to live on it." Dr. Carter gasped as she looked at her readings. "Captain, there are ships out there, lots of them. They're trying to evacuate the planet, but their ships are failing." Jake could see them now on the main screen. Dozens of strange ships were flying back and forth between the dying planet and empty space. Some of the ships looked damaged, with pieces missing or engines that weren't working right. A few ships were just floating in space, dark and silent. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "I'm reading life signs on those dead ships. There are people trapped in there." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. This was not a trap. This was something much worse. An entire species was watching their world die, and their escape ships were breaking down one by one. "Try to contact them," he ordered. Lisa worked at her station for several minutes before a new voice came through their speakers. The voice was high and musical, but also filled with sadness and fear. Dr. Carter's translation program worked slowly to change the alien words into English. "Unknown ship. This is Commander Zara Veltar of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. Please identify yourself. We are in great need of help." Jake stepped forward. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Terra's. Hope. We received your distress signals. What is your situation?" There was a long pause. Then the alien voice spoke again, and even through the translation, Jake could hear the desperation. "Captain Morrison, our sun is expanding much faster than our scientists predicted. We have 50,000 people still on our planet and in our space stations. Our evacuation ships are failing. We sent messages to our allies in the Galactic Coalition, but they say they cannot help us. They say it would cost too much and that we are not important enough to save." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. What kind of allies would abandon an entire species? "We have perhaps 72 hours before our planet becomes uninhabitable," the commander continued. "After that, everyone still here will die. Captain Morrison, I do not know who humans are, but if you have any mercy in your hearts, please help us." Jake looked around at his crew. He saw determination in Lisa's eyes, concern in Ben's weathered face, and tears in Dr. Carter's eyes. They all knew what this meant. 50,000 lives hung in the balance, and somehow these people had been abandoned by everyone except a single human ship that had stumbled across their tragedy by accident. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Jake made the decision that would change everything. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Morrison. We're going to help you, all of you." Captain Jake Morrison knew he had just made a promise that might be impossible to keep. His ship could hold maybe 200 people if they packed everyone in tight. The Zephyrians had 50,000 people who needed to escape their dying world. "Ben, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority 1, Jake ordered. Ben worked at his station, and soon the face of Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared on the main screen. She was an older woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back tight. Jake had known her for 10 years, and she had always been fair with him. "Captain Morrison, what's your status?" she asked. Jake quickly explained the situation. He told her about the expanding star, the failing Zephyrian ships, and the 50,000 people who would die in 3 days. Admiral Sullivan listened without speaking, but Jake could see the worry growing on her face. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "Jake, I understand what you want to do, but we don't have the ships. Our biggest rescue vessels are 3 weeks away from your position. The transport ships are spread across 6 different sectors. Even if I could get them all to you, we're talking about maybe 20 ships total." 20 ships could save a lot of people, Jake said. "Not 50,000 people, Jake. Maybe 5,000 if we're lucky, and that's assuming none of our ships break down on the way." Jake felt his heart sink, but he wasn't ready to give up. "What about the Galactic Coalition? Can't we ask them to help?" Admiral Sullivan's face got dark. "I already tried. They told me in very clear terms that humanity should not interfere with what they called natural cosmic events. They also said that if we try to help the Zephyrians, they'll put economic sanctions on all human colonies. No trade, no supplies, nothing." Lisa spoke up from her station. "Admiral, with respect, who cares what they think? People are going to die." "I care, Lieutenant, because those sanctions could hurt millions of humans. I can't risk the lives of our own people for strangers, no matter how much I want to help them." Jake stared at the screen. He understood the Admiral's position, but it still made him angry. Politics and money seemed more important than lives to the people in charge. "Admiral, what if we could do this without using official fleet ships? What if we found another way?" "Jake, don't do anything stupid. I know that look on your face. You're thinking about going against orders." "I'm thinking about saving lives, ma'am." Admiral Sullivan sighed. "I can't give you official permission to do anything that might anger the Coalition, but I also can't order you to abandon people who are asking for help. Do you understand me, Captain?" Jake smiled for the first time since they had arrived in the system. I understand perfectly, Admiral. After the call ended, Jake turned to his crew. They all looked at him, waiting to see what he would do next. Ben, I need you to open a channel to every human ship, station, and colony within communication range. Make it a broad-spectrum broadcast so everyone can hear it. Sir, that's going to reach hundreds of ships and maybe millions of people. Good. That's exactly what I want. Ben set up the communication system, and soon Jake was speaking to more people than he had ever addressed at one time. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terra's Hope. I'm broadcasting from the Kepler 442 system, where I've found 50,000 people who are about to die. Their star is expanding, their planet is burning, and their ships are failing. The people who were supposed to help them have walked away. They said it would cost too much. They said these lives weren't worth saving. Jake paused, thinking about what to say next. He could see his crew watching him, and he knew that thousands of humans across space were listening to his words. I'm not a politician and I'm not a diplomat. I'm just a ship captain who believes that when someone asks for help, you help them. I don't care what species they are or what planet they come from. I don't care if it's dangerous or expensive or inconvenient. When people are dying and you can save them, you save them. Dr. Carter wiped tears from her eyes as Jake continued. My ship can save maybe 200 people. That leaves 49,800 who will die unless more of us step up. I'm asking every human who can hear my voice to come to Kepler 442. Bring your cargo ships, your passenger ships, your mining vessels, anything that can carry people. We have less than 3 days to pull off the biggest rescue operation in human history. Jake took a deep breath. I know I'm asking a lot. I know some of you have cargo to deliver or schedules to keep. I know coming here might cost you money or get you in trouble with your bosses. But I also know that every one of you became a spacer because you wanted to explore the unknown and help make the galaxy a better place. Well, here's your chance. 50,000 innocent people are counting on us. He looked directly into the camera. The Galactic Coalition has abandoned these people. They've decided that some lives don't matter. I say they're wrong. I say every life matters. I say no one gets left behind. Terra's Hope out. The bridge was quiet after Jake finished his broadcast. Lisa was the first to speak. Captain, do you think anyone will come? Before Jake could answer, Ben's communication station started beeping. Then it started beeping faster. Then it started making so much noise that Ben had to turn down the volume. Captain, Ben said with amazement in his voice, we're getting responses. A lot of responses. The first message came from Captain Tony Rodriguez of the cargo ship New Boston. Morrison, this is Rodriguez. I'm carrying farming equipment to the Centauri colonies, but I guess they can wait. My ship can hold about 800 people if we stack them like cargo. I'm 3 hours out from your position. The second message came from Linda Hayes, who ran a mining operation in the asteroid belt. Captain Morrison, this is Supervisor Hayes. I've got 6 industrial ships and 2 transports. We can carry maybe 2,000 people total. My crews are already voting to help. We'll be there in 8 hours. More messages kept coming. Steve Kumar, who flew tourists around in a small passenger ship, said he could take 50 people. The UI crew of a research station said they could spare their emergency evacuation pods. A group of independent traders said they would work together to carry as many refugees as possible. Dr. Carter was crying openly now, but they were happy tears. Jake, there are so many people responding. Dozens of ships. Lisa was counting the responses on her screen. Captain, if even half of these ships actually show up, we might be able to save everyone. But Ben looked worried. Captain, some of these people are risking their careers to help us. If the coalition really does put sanctions on humanity, a lot of these volunteers could lose everything. Jake nodded. I know, Ben, but look at how they're responding. Nobody's asking about money or politics. They're just asking how they can help save lives. This is what makes us human. Commander Zara Veltar's voice came through their speakers again. The translation program had gotten better at understanding her language, and now her words were clearer. Captain Morrison, we are monitoring your communications. Are those really your people volunteering to help us? They don't even know us. Jake smiled. Commander, that's exactly why they're volunteering. Humans have a saying. We don't abandon anyone. It doesn't matter if we know you or not. What matters is that you need help, and we can give it." There was a long pause. Then the commander spoke again, and even through the translation, Jake could hear the wonder in her voice. "Captain, in all our years as part of the Galactic Coalition, no species has ever done anything like this for us. Your people are risking their lives and their livelihoods for strangers. Why?" Jake looked around at his crew, then at the growing list of volunteer ships on their screen. "Because that's what good people do, Commander. And there are more good people in this galaxy than the politicians want you to believe." 24 hours later, Jake Morrison looked out at something he had never seen before. More than 60 human ships floated in space around the dying Zephyrian world. Big cargo haulers, small passenger ships, mining vessels, and even a few tourist boats had all come to help. It was the largest group of human ships ever gathered in one place, and none of them were military vessels. But the situation was worse than Jake had expected. Dr. Carter's readings showed that the Zephyrian star was expanding faster than anyone had predicted. Solar flares were shooting out from the red giant star, and the radiation was destroying Zephyrian technology much quicker than they had hoped. "Captain," Dr. Carter said with worry in her voice, "the Zephyrians aren't just on their planet anymore. When their main evacuation ships failed, they moved everyone to space stations orbiting above their world. But those stations are falling apart too." Jake looked at the main screen. He could see dozens of space stations scattered around the planet, some of them already dark and powerless. Emergency lights blinked on others, showing that people were still alive inside but in serious trouble. Commander Zara Veltar appeared on their communication screen. She looked tired and scared. Behind her, Jake could see other Zephyrians working frantically at control panels, trying to keep their station running. "Captain Morrison, our situation has become much worse. We had to abandon the planet's surface 12 hours ago when the temperature became too hot for us to survive. But our space stations were never meant to hold so many people for so long. Life support systems are failing and we're losing power." "How many stations are there?" Jake asked. 47 stations, with anywhere from 500 to 3,000 people on each one. But 15 stations have already lost all power. The people inside are alive, but we cannot reach them. Our remaining ships are too damaged to dock safely." Lisa whistled softly. "That's a lot of separate rescue operations, Captain." Jake opened a communication channel to all the human ships. "This is Morrison to all vessels. We need to coordinate. The biggest rescue operation any of us have ever seen. Ben, put up a tactical display of all the stations." Ben's screen showed a three-dimensional map of the space around the Zephyrian planet. Each space station appeared as a small dot, with green dots for stations that still had power and red dots for stations that were dark. Captain Tony Rodriguez's voice came through the speakers. "Morrison, my cargo ship New Boston can dock with the bigger stations, but some of those smaller ones look too damaged for a ship my size to approach safely." Steve Kumar spoke up next. "My passenger ship is small and maneuverable. I can get into tight spaces that the big ships can't reach." Linda Hayes added, "My mining ships have cutting tools and repair equipment. If any of those stations need emergency hull repairs before we can evacuate them, we can handle that." Jake felt a surge of pride in his fellow humans. Without being ordered or organized, they were already figuring out how to work together to save lives. "All right, everyone. Here's how we're going to do this. Big ships take the big stations. Small ships take the small stations. Mining ships provide support and emergency repairs. Dr. Carter, I need you to work with the Zephyrian scientists to figure out how to adapt our life support systems to work with their biology." Dr. Carter nodded. "Already on it, Captain. Their oxygen needs are similar to ours, but they require a slightly different atmospheric pressure. It's going to be tight, but we can make it work." The rescue operation began immediately. Jake watched as human ships moved toward the Zephyrian stations like pieces in a complicated puzzle. Each captain had to figure out how to dock with alien technology, while radiation from the expanding star made everything more dangerous. Captain Rodriguez took his cargo ship to the largest station, which held nearly 3,000 Zephyrians. But when he tried to dock, the station's docking clamps wouldn't work with his ship's design. "This is Rodriguez. Their docking system is completely different from ours. I can't get a seal. Ben Clark had an idea. Rodriguez, do you have any industrial adhesive tape in your cargo hold? Yeah, tons of it. Why? Patch your airlock to theirs with the tape, then use your ship's atmospheric pressure to create a seal. It's not pretty, but it should work. Jake held his breath as he watched Rodriguez try Ben's plan. Minutes passed before Rodriguez's voice came back, sounding amazed. It worked. I've got a good seal. Starting evacuation now. Similar problems came, up at every station. The Zephyrian technology was advanced but completely different from human designs. However, human creativity and stubbornness kept finding solutions. Steve Kumar discovered that his small passenger ship could actually fly inside the docking bays of the larger stations, allowing him to evacuate people even when the docking systems didn't work. Linda Hayes used her mining ship's cutting tools to create new doors in damaged stations, giving people escape routes when the normal exits were blocked. Dr. Carter worked with Zephyrian scientist Dr. Keth Norval to solve life support problems in real time. When they discovered that human air recyclers made a noise that hurt Zephyrian ears, Carter figured out how to modify the systems using spare parts from different ships. But the solar radiation was getting worse. Ships had to use more and more power to keep their shields working, and some of the smaller vessels were starting to have problems. Captain Morrison, called out Captain Sarah Bell from the transport ship Dakota Wind. My shields are failing. I've got 800 Zephyrians on board, but I don't think I can make it to the safe zone. Rodriguez, can you help? Jake asked. Already. On my way, Morrison. I'll use my ship to block the radiation while Bell gets her people to safety. Jake watched as the big cargo ship positioned itself between the smaller transport and the deadly star. Rodriguez was putting his own ship and crew at risk to protect the refugees. As the hours passed, the human fleet worked like a machine made of many different parts. When one ship had problems, others moved to help. When supplies ran low, ships shared what they had. When someone got tired, others took over their duties. Commander Zara Veltar contacted Jake again. This time there were tears in her large eyes. Captain Morrison, I am watching your people risk their lives for mine. Ship after ship, your humans are putting themselves in danger to save Zephyrians they have never met. One of your captains just used his own ship as a shield to protect our children. Why do your people do this? Jake looked around his bridge. Lisa was coordinating traffic between dozens of ships. Ben was solving technical problems faster than Jake had ever seen him work. Dr. Carter was helping alien scientists save alien lives. Commander, we do this because it's right. We do this because when someone needs help, you help them. We do this because no one should die alone in the dark. The commander was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Jake would remember for the rest of his life. Captain Morrison, the Galactic Coalition has thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. They have technology we can barely understand and resources beyond counting. But in all my years dealing with them, I have never seen them do anything like what your people are doing today. They told us we were not worth saving. Your people are proving them wrong. Suddenly, Lisa's alarm sounded. Captain, we've got a problem. The star just released a massive solar flare. It's heading straight for the planet and it's going to hit in 30 minutes. Jake felt his stomach drop. How many people do we still have to evacuate? Ben checked his numbers. About 3,000 spread across 5 stations. Can we get them all in 30 minutes? Not with the ships we have in position. We'd need at least an hour. Jake looked at the tactical display. The solar flare would destroy anything in its path, including any ships that were still trying to evacuate the remaining stations. Then Steve Kumar's voice came through the speakers, calm and determined. Morrison, this is Kumar. I can reach those last stations, but my ship won't be fast enough to get clear before that flare hits. If I go in now, I can evacuate all 3,000 people, but I probably won't make it out. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what Steve was saying. He was volunteering to die to save 3,000 alien strangers. Steve, there has to be another way, Jake said. There isn't, Captain, and you know it. Those people have families and children and dreams just like we do. I'm not going to let them burn because I was too scared to do my job. Jake closed his eyes. When he opened them, he saw his crew looking at him. They all knew that Steve was right. Steve, are you sure about this? Never been more sure of anything in my life, Captain. Tell my family I was proud to be human today. Jake watched as Steve Kumar's small passenger ship flew toward the 5 remaining stations, racing against time and a wall of deadly radiation that was rushing toward them all. Jake Morrison watched Steve Kumar's ship disappear into the radiation storm surrounding the dying planet. The small passenger vessel looked tiny against the massive solar flare that was racing toward them. On his screen, Jake could see the deadly wall of energy and fire that would hit the planet in less than 30 minutes. Steve, what's your status? Jake called over the radio. Approaching the first station now, Captain. I can see people at the windows. They know I'm coming. Jake's heart pounded as he watched the radar display. Steve's ship was moving fast, but the solar flare was moving faster. The numbers on the screen showed that Steve would barely have enough time to reach all 5 stations, let alone escape to safety. Captain, Lisa said quietly, even if Steve gets everyone off those stations, he'll never make it out of the radiation zone in time. Jake knew she was right, but he couldn't just give up on one of his people. Ben, is there anything we can do to help him? Ben studied his engineering displays, his weathered face tight with concentration. The only way to survive that flare is to get behind something big enough to block the radiation. But there's nothing out there except what? Except the planet itself. If Steve could get to the far side of the planet and stay there until the flare passes, he might survive. Dr. Carter looked up from her station. How long would the flare last? About 6 hours, Ben replied. But the planet's atmosphere is already burning. Anyone who tries to hide behind it would be flying through fire and poison gas. Jake opened his communication channel. Steve, did you hear that? I heard it, Captain. But I can't get to the far side of the planet and evacuate these stations. There's not enough time to do both. Jake felt helpless as he watched Steve dock with the first station. Through the ship's cameras, he could see Zephyrian families rushing aboard Steve's vessel. Parents carried children, and elderly Zephyrians helped each other move as quickly as possible. First station clear, Steve reported. Moving to Station 2. Captain Tony Rodriguez's voice came through the speakers. Morrison, I'm watching the radiation readings. That flare is getting stronger. If we don't do something, we're going to lose Steve and everyone he's trying to save. Jake looked at the tactical display again. The other human ships were all safely away from the danger zone, but they were too far away to help Steve. Then he had an idea. Rodriguez, how much cargo are you carrying? About 2,000 tons of farming equipment. Why? Can you dump it? Dump it? Morrison, that cargo is worth millions of credits. Tony, I need your ship to be as light and fast as possible. How much faster could you go without that cargo? There was a pause. Then Rodriguez laughed. You want me to go help Steve, don't you? Even though it means flying into that death trap. I can't order you to do it, Tony. But if you're willing, already dumping the cargo, Captain, that farming equipment can wait. Steve can't. Jake watched as the cargo ship New Boston released its entire load into space. Thousands of tons of UAO equipment floated away as Rodriguez pushed his engines to maximum power. Steve, Rodriguez is coming to help you. Can you hold on? Just finished Station 2, Captain. 3 more to go. But I'm starting to feel the radiation effects. My shields are down to 60%. Linda Hayes suddenly spoke up from her mining ship. Morrison, I've got an idea. What if we don't try to outrun the flare? What if we try to block it? Block a solar flare? Linda, that's impossible. Maybe not. My mining ships have heavy-duty shields designed to work in asteroid fields. If we link our ships together and focus all our shield power into one barrier, we might be able to create a shadow zone behind us. Jake thought about this. It was crazy, but it might work. How many ships would you need? At least 6 of the big mining vessels, and we'd have to position ourselves between Steve and the flare. That means you'd take the full force of the solar radiation. Your ships might not survive. Maybe not, but Steve definitely won't survive if we don't try. Jake felt a surge of emotion as he realized what Linda was proposing. She was willing to risk 6 ships and dozens of crew members to save one man and the refugees he was trying to rescue. Linda, are you sure about this? Captain Steve is risking his life to save people he's never met. The least we can do is risk ours to save him. Within minutes, 6 mining ships moved into position between Steve's location and the approaching solar flare. Jake watched as the mining vessels linked their shields together, creating a barrier of energy that he hoped would be strong enough to protect Steve. "Shield wall in position," Linda reported. "Steve, you're in our shadow now. We'll hold this position as long as we can." "Rodriguez, what's your status?" Jake asked. "Almost there, Morrison. I can see Steve's ship at Station 4. My cargo hold is empty and ready for passengers." Jake switched to Steve's channel. "Steve, Rodriguez is there to help. Can you transfer some of the refugees to his ship?" "Already doing it, Captain, but we've got a problem. Station 5 is completely dark, no power, no life support, no docking systems. The people inside are alive, but I can't get to them." Ben had been listening to everything. "Steve, does your ship have any cutting tools?" "Just a small laser cutter for emergency repairs." "That might work. You'll have to cut through the station's hull and create your own entrance." Jake looked at his screens. The solar flare was only 10 minutes away, and Steve was talking about cutting through alien metal with a tool designed for minor repairs. "Steve, there's not enough time. You need to get out of there now." "Negative, Captain. I can hear them inside the station. They're tapping on the walls. There are children in there." Jake closed his eyes. He knew that tone in Steve's voice. The pilot had made his decision, and nothing would change his mind. "Tony, can you help him? My ship has industrial cutters, but I'd have to dock with the station too. If that flare hits while we're both connected to the station, we'll all die together," Steve finished. "Tony, you should get out of here. Take the people you've already saved and go." "Not happening, Steve. I didn't come this far to abandon you now." Jake watched as both ships docked with the dark station. Through their cameras, he could see sparks flying as the humans used their cutting tools to break through the station's hull. The solar flare was only 5 minutes away. "Got it," Steve shouted. "The hull is open. I can see the Zephyrians inside." Jake watched as alien families rushed through the hole in their station's wall. Parents passed children to the human crews, who carried them to safety aboard the rescue ships. "That's everyone," Tony reported. "All refugees are aboard. Steve, we need to go now." "Roger that." Undocking in 3, 2, 1. Jake held his breath as both ships pulled away from the station and accelerated toward the shield wall that Linda's mining ships had created. The solar flare was only 2 minutes away, a wall of fire and radiation that filled half the sky. "Linda, how are your shields holding?" Jake asked. "Down to 40% and falling fast, Captain. But we're still here." Jake could see both rescue ships racing toward the shield barrier. They were going to make it. They had to make it. Then Steve's ship started to slow down. "Steve, what's wrong?" "Engine damage from the radiation, Captain. I'm losing power." Tony's voice came through immediately. "I see you, Steve. I'm coming back for you." "Tony, no! You've got 800 people on your ship. You can't risk them for me." "Watch me." Jake watched as the cargo ship New Boston turned around and flew back toward Steve's failing vessel. The solar flare was only 1 minute away, a wall of destruction that would kill anything in its path. "Tony, grab Steve's ship with your tractor beam and pull him with you," Jake ordered. "Trying, Captain, but his ship is too heavy. The beam won't hold." Jake could see both ships on his screen, so close to safety but not close enough. In 30 seconds, the solar flare would hit them. Then Commander Zara Veltar's voice came through the speakers. She was aboard Tony's ship and she was crying. "Captain Morrison, I want you to know that my people will never forget what your humans have done for us today. We will tell our children, and our children's children about the day humanity saved us when no one else would." Jake watched the solar flare engulf both ships and his screen went white. Jake Morrison stared at the white screen for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The solar flare had hit Steve Kumar and Tony Rodriguez's ships, and now there was nothing but static and radiation where they had been. "Ben, can you get any readings through that interference?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ben worked frantically at his station, trying different sensors and frequencies. "Nothing yet, Captain. The radiation is too strong. We'll have to wait for it to clear." Dr. Carter wiped tears from her eyes. "How long before we can scan the area?" "Maybe an hour before the radiation drops enough for our sensors to work," Ben replied. Jake felt like he had failed everyone. Steve and Tony were probably dead, along with all the refugees they had been trying to save. He had sent good people to their deaths, and for what? Captain, Lisa said softly. The other ships are asking for orders. Should we stay and search for survivors, or should we take the refugees we saved to safety? Jake looked at the numbers on his screen. They had successfully evacuated 47,000 Zephyrians from the dying planet. It was the largest rescue operation in human history, but it didn't feel like a victory when 3,000 people might have died in the final moments. We wait, Jake said firmly. We don't leave anyone behind. An hour passed slowly. The human fleet stayed in formation, protecting the Zephyrian refugees while they waited for news about Steve and Tony. Finally, Ben's sensors started working again. Captain, I'm getting something. 2 ships, both badly damaged, but still intact. They're drifting behind what's left of the planet. Jake's heart jumped. Life signs? Checking now. Yes, I'm reading life signs on both ships, human and Zephyrian. Cheers erupted across the communication channels as every human ship heard the news. Steve Kumar and Tony Rodriguez had survived the solar flare by hiding in the planet's shadow, just as Ben had suggested. This is Steve Kumar, came a weak voice through the static. Sorry for the delay, Captain. Tony and I had to make some emergency repairs before we could call home. Steve, how many people do you have with you? All 3,000 refugees are safe and sound, Captain. A little shaken up, but alive. Tony's ship took most of the damage. We're going to need some help getting back to the fleet. Jake closed his eyes and felt relief wash over him. They had done it. All 50,000 Zephyrians had been saved. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of New Terra Colony, watching Zephyrian children play with human children in the settlements. Central Park. The blue-skinned alien kids were learning English while the human kids were learning Zephyrian. They all seemed to understand each other perfectly when they were playing games. New Terra had volunteered to take in all 50,000 Zephyrian refugees. The colonists had worked day and night to build new homes, expand the life support systems, and create space for their unexpected guests. It hadn't been easy, but no one had complained. Jake watched as a Zephyrian family named the Vellners shared dinner with the Johnson family from Earth. The children were telling stories and laughing together, while the adults discussed plans for a new school that would teach both human and Zephyrian subjects. It's beautiful, isn't it? Commander Zara Veltar said as she joined Jake at the observation window. She now served as the Zephyrian ambassador to humanity, helping her people adjust to their new life. It is, Jake agreed. I never imagined it would work out this well. Captain Morrison, may I ask you something? Of course. And please, just call me Jake. Jake, when you made that broadcast 6 months ago, did you really think so many humans would answer your call? Jake thought about this. Honestly, I hoped they would, but I wasn't sure. I've always believed that humans are good people, but I'd never tested that belief on such a scale. The Galactic Coalition is still trying to understand what happened here. They cannot comprehend why your people risked so much for strangers. Jake smiled. What do they say about it? They call it inefficient and economically unsound. They say that humans are too emotional to be trusted with important decisions. And what do you think? Commander Veltar looked out at the children playing in the park. I think they are. Afraid of you. This surprised Jake. Afraid of us? Why? Because you proved them wrong about everything they believe. The coalition species think that survival means looking out for yourself first and others second. They think that helping strangers is a weakness that will get you killed. But you showed the galaxy that helping others makes you stronger, not weaker. Jake had heard rumors that the rescue of the Zephyrians had caused problems in the Galactic Coalition. Several smaller species had started questioning why the Coalition had abandoned the Zephyrians, and some had even begun reaching out to humanity for trade and protection agreements. Commander, I've been meaning to ask you something too. What happened to your technology? Your ships and space stations were so advanced, but they all failed when you needed them most. That is a difficult story, Jake. Our technology was designed by the Coalition. They said it would make us dependent on them for maintenance and upgrades, but we trusted them. When we needed help, our allies simply turned off the remote access codes that kept our ships running. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. They sabotaged your rescue efforts? Not directly. They simply stopped helping us help ourselves. It is a common practice among coalition species. They keep their client species dependent so they can control them. Before Jake could respond, his communication device beeped. It was a message from Admiral Kate Sullivan. Jake, I need to speak with you immediately. We've received a transmission from a species called the Althari. They're asking for human help. Jake and Commander Veltar made their way to the colony's communication center, where Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. Admiral, what's the situation? The Althari are being invaded by the Korthak Empire, one of the major coalition powers. The Althari asked the coalition for protection, but they were told that their system isn't strategically valuable enough to defend. Commander, Veltar spoke up. Admiral Sullivan, I know the Althari. They are a peaceful people, much like my own. They have something the Korthak want, rare minerals that are used in advanced weapons. The Althari leader sent us a message, Admiral Sullivan continued. She said they heard about what we did for the Zephyrians and they're asking if humanity will help protect them. Jake looked at the Admiral's serious expression. What does Earth Command think? Earth Command is divided. Some officials think we should stay out of coalition politics. Others think this is our chance to show the galaxy that there's an alternative to the coalition's way of doing things. What do you think, Admiral? Admiral Sullivan smiled. I think that 6 months ago, one ship captain made a decision that changed how the galaxy sees humanity. Maybe it's time for humanity to change how we see ourselves. Jake looked out the window at the human and Zephyrian families living together in peace. Then he thought about the Althari, facing invasion and abandonment, just as the Zephyrians had. Admiral, how many ships can we muster? If we include all the volunteers from the Zephyrian rescue, plus the new ships that have joined us since then, we could have over 200 vessels ready to go in a week. Commander Veltar stepped forward. Admiral Jake, the Zephyrians would like to help too. We've been working with human engineers to rebuild our technology using human designs. We have 20 ships that could join your fleet. Jake felt something he had never felt before. For the first time since humans had reached the stars, they weren't alone. They had allies who chose to stand with them, not because of treaties or politics, but because of shared values. Admiral, tell the Althari that help is coming, and tell them that when we get there, we're going to do something the coalition has never seen before. What's that, Jake? We're going to show them what happens when good people work together. 3 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Terra's Hope II, as it led a fleet of over 200 human and Zephyrian vessels toward the Althari system. The ship was larger than his old vessel, designed specifically for rescue and humanitarian operations. As they traveled through space, Jake received messages from species across the galaxy. Some were asking for help with their own problems. Others were offering to join the growing alliance of worlds that were choosing cooperation over domination. Captain, Lisa said from her station, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Coalition. They're demanding that we turn back and stop interfering with their territory. Jake looked at the stars ahead of them, knowing that somewhere among them was another species that needed help. Behind him, he could feel the presence of 200 ships filled with humans and Zephyrians who had chosen to risk everything for strangers. Tell the coalition that we're not interfering with their territory, Jake said. We're creating our own. Commander Veltar, who now served as his diplomatic advisor, smiled. Captain, what shall we call this new territory of ours? Jake thought about the children playing together on New Terra, about Steve Kumar flying into a solar storm to save alien families, about Tony Rodriguez dumping millions of credits worth of cargo to help a friend. He thought about all the humans who had answered his call 6 months ago and all the aliens who were now asking to join them. We'll call it the Alliance of Free.